In every family, there's someone who does everything and yet feels like nothing. Ethan Carter was that someone. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. He moved through life like clockwork, always on time, always fixing, always paying, always solving, while the world spun selfishly around him. Most people didn't even see him. They saw what he did. They loved what he offered. But rarely did anyone love him. Amanda, his wife, was magnetic. Beautiful, brilliant, full of ambition and fire. The kind of woman who dreamed big and lived fast. Ethan admired her, supported her, believed in her more than she believed in herself. When she said she wanted to open a boutique, Ethan didn't blink. He cashed out his savings, dipped into his emergency fund, and covered the lease on the storefront. He built the website himself, handled the invoices, and fixed the plumbing when it broke at 2 a.m. He never asked for praise, never complained. Not once. Amanda's family adored the boutique. They bragged about it at parties, posted selfies there like it was their legacy. Not once did they mention Ethan. Not once did they ask who was paying the bills or how the rent got covered during slow seasons. When Amanda's mom needed surgery, Ethan was the one who stepped in. Quietly, instinctively. He paid the entire medical debt off in one afternoon. No one knew, because Ethan didn't tell anyone. That wasn't his way. And when Jessica, Amanda's younger sister, lost her job and got dumped by her fiancé in the same week, Ethan opened his guest room, handed her a key. And later, when she couldn't qualify for a lease, he put his name on her apartment, just so she'd have a roof over her head. That's who Ethan was. The man who filled in the gaps no one noticed until he stopped doing it. The man who gave not because he wanted recognition, but because he believed that love meant action. People called him solid, steady, predictable. What they meant was forgettable. What they meant was safe enough to take for granted. But here's the thing about quiet men like Ethan. They feel everything. Every ignored thank you. Every sideways glance, every little laugh behind their back. And when a quiet man finally gets tired of being invisible, he doesn't yell. He rewrites the ending. They called it Amanda's house. The house with the perfect garden, the reclaimed wood dining table, the custom cabinets she picked out from the catalog, while Ethan measured and installed everything himself. Her family praised her eye for style. They toasted to her taste. But no one asked who paid for the down payment. No one saw the man staying up till 2 a.m. adjusting kitchen plumbing so Amanda could sleep before her boutique opened at dawn. The boutique was hers. The vacations were theirs. The stories were always about Amanda's dreams, never about the man who turned those dreams into bills that he paid off one by one. He bought her parents a new furnace when theirs failed in winter. He bailed out her cousin after a DUI arrest, anonymously. He helped Jessica enroll in school again, covering half her tuition, and she never even thanked him. Ethan became the financial spine of a family that saw him as background decoration. They loved his generosity, but they never loved him. They loved his wallet, his silence. They loved that he never made them feel guilty, not even when they should have. And Ethan, he told himself, it was okay, that this was what family meant, that his reward wasn't praise, but peace. But slowly, painfully, that illusion cracked. When he sat at family dinners, he wasn't asked about his day. He was asked to pass the salt. When Amanda posted about her boutique success, there was no mention of our team or my husband who built this from nothing. It was her win. Ethan started noticing the pattern, how every act of kindness turned invisible the moment it was done. He had built their foundation, fed their comfort, but he was never part of the celebration. He was the man behind the curtain, not the man they clapped for on stage. And you can only be unseen for so long before you start questioning whether you were ever really there. At first, it was just a feeling, a flicker, a shift in the air. Ethan would walk into a room and conversations would pause, not out of respect, but as if his presence interrupted something. When he asked a question, people responded vaguely. When he offered to help, they waved it off, like a child trying to join an adult conversation. And then came the laughter. Not the warm, inclusive kind. The kind that lands right after a whisper and dies the second he enters the room. The inside jokes that weren't meant for him. The side eyes between Amanda and Jessica. The way her cousin chuckled when Ethan offered to drive them to the airport, as if the gesture was adorable instead of respectable. Little by little, Ethan stopped being a person and started becoming a background object. He'd speak, and no one would respond right away. He'd suggest something: dinner, a movie, a weekend away, and get a half nod, a forced smile, and silence. Amanda used to light up when he walked in the room. Now she barely looked up from her phone. "Don't wait up," she'd say casually, slipping out in heels and red lipstick. No kiss, no eye contact. And Ethan still tried. He still made her favorite tea on Sunday mornings, still fixed the wobbly kitchen chair she never noticed, still cleaned her car, filled the gas, scheduled her oil changes, all in silence. But somewhere between those chores, he disappeared. Not physically, emotionally. He could be sitting right beside them and still feel like he was on the other side of glass. And the cruelest part? No one noticed. No one said, "Ethan, are you okay?" No one said, "Thank you." He wasn't hated. He was ignored. And sometimes that cuts even deeper. The fork froze halfway to his mouth. Not because the food was bad, not because the conversation was interesting, but because of what Jessica said. Her voice cut across the table like a shard of glass. How does it feel being the most useless one here? The words weren't shouted. They were dropped, delicate, sarcastic, like she was placing a cherry on top of a beautifully cruel dessert. Amanda's wine glass clinked as she laughed. Her cousin snorted. Even her father gave a short, uncomfortable chuckle. Ethan didn't laugh. He didn't blink. He just looked up, calm, still, like the eye of a hurricane. The air around the table buzzed with tension no one could name. And then, gently, Ethan set his fork down. He folded his napkin, took a breath, and in a voice so soft it forced them to lean in, he said, "How does it feel knowing this useless one won't be paying your bills anymore?" Silence. Not awkward silence, not confused silence, crushing silence. The kind that falls when a curtain is pulled and everyone realizes the show is over. Jessica's mouth twitched. Amanda shifted in her chair. Her cousin dropped his fork. Ethan didn't move. He just watched. For the first time in years, he wasn't invisible. He was undeniable. And this was just the beginning. He smiled. That's what caught them off guard the most. Not the words, not the tone, but the smile. Ethan, the man they'd laughed at for years, wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting or accusing or slamming his fist on the table. He was calm, collected, and smiling. The kind of smile you only wear when you've already won. Jessica blinked fast, as if trying to process whether this was a joke. Amanda's expression shifted confused, then tense. Her father cleared his throat. Her cousin whispered something under his breath. And still, Ethan said nothing more. He just leaned back and let the silence do the damage. Because sometimes words are overrated. Sometimes a smile is enough to burn the whole house down. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't even begin to guess, was that this wasn't a spontaneous reaction. This was Act 2. The files were already printed. The passwords had already been changed. The credit cards had already been frozen. The legal team already briefed. While they laughed behind his back, he was tightening the noose. While they rolled their eyes at his kindness, he was building a firewall around every cent he owned. Ethan had spent months preparing for this moment, not for revenge, but for clarity, to prove to himself that he hadn't imagined it, that the coldness was real, that the disrespect wasn't accidental. And now, as the air around the table thickened with unspoken panic, Ethan smiled. Not because he was cruel, but because finally they were seeing him. For the first time, they understood the cost of their laughter. Maybe it was arrogance, or maybe Amanda simply didn't care anymore. But one night, she left her laptop open. Ethan wasn't snooping. He wasn't the type. He was just walking past the kitchen island, reaching for the electric kettle, when he saw it. A message thread between Amanda and Jessica. The screen was glowing in the dark room like a spotlight, and in that moment, it lit up everything he'd been too blind to see. Jessica, just keep milking him. Amanda, please, he still thinks I love him. He's too busy being everyone's hero to notice he's the biggest fool in the room. Ethan didn't breathe. His hands didn't tremble, not yet. He just stared. The words weren't vague, weren't misinterpreted. They were clear, cold, calculated. The kind of betrayal that doesn't whisper, it stabs. This wasn't emotional drift. This wasn't growing apart. This was a conspiracy. Jessica, the woman he had housed, protected, and defended. Amanda, the woman he married, supported and loved beyond reason. And now they were laughing about him, not just behind his back, but inside his own home, on a device he bought, using Wi-Fi he paid for, while he boiled water to make her tea. Ethan stood there for a long time, long enough to read every message, long enough to know the man they thought they were fooling was already gone. What stood there now was someone else entirely. It started with a single receipt. Amanda said she was going on a girls' weekend. Self-care yoga retreat, candles and matching robes, the works. But the hotel bill that popped up on Ethan's shared account wasn't for a wellness resort. It was for a luxury downtown suite, for two. One dinner at a rooftop steakhouse, a charge for champagne and strawberries at midnight, a men's cologne purchase at the hotel boutique, and no yoga anywhere in sight. That was the first thread Ethan pulled, and the entire sweater came undone. Phone records, GPS logs, rideshare history. Amanda wasn't visiting her aunt. She wasn't working late. She wasn't with her friends. The timestamps didn't lie. There were nights where she said she was on a business call, but her location pinged at a condo downtown registered under a different man's name. Ethan didn't scream. He didn't confront her. He downloaded, saved, filed, evidence. But Amanda wasn't the only one. Jessica, too. While pretending to look for jobs, she'd been applying for credit cards in Ethan's name. And she got them. She maxed out 2 of them. Spa days, electronics, a designer handbag he'd never seen in the house. She used his name, his social security number, his good credit, all while smiling at him across the dinner table and saying, "You're the best brother-in-law ever." The betrayal wasn't just emotional now. It was legal. It was theft. Amanda was sleeping around. Jessica was stealing. And Ethan, he was documenting everything. Quietly, strategically, because what they didn't know was that the man they called predictable was preparing the most unpredictable move of all. He didn't scream, he didn't throw things, he didn't demand answers or slam doors or pour whiskey into a glass with shaking hands. Ethan Carter didn't unravel, he transformed, quietly, precisely. While Amanda painted her nails and Jessica streamed shows on the couch, Ethan bought a second phone, installed backup tracking apps, subscribed to digital storage. He created a folder, named it Just In Case. Then he began. GPS logs from her phone when she left late at night. Timestamps matched with her calendar. Uber receipts, hotel invoices scanned and sorted, photos of her boutique's ledger showing undeclared cash. A downloaded copy of the group chat Jessica didn't know was syncing to the cloud. Emails, security footage, voice memos. Every lie Amanda thought was safe behind her password was now in Ethan's encrypted drive. And when his hands started shaking, it wasn't from rage. It was from the weight of reality settling on his shoulders. So he did what Ethan Carter had never done before. He called a lawyer. Then he called his accountant. Then he called someone else. Himself. Not the version they joked about, not the dependable fool, but the version he buried years ago, the one who knew his worth, the one who knew silence can be strategy. Amanda hadn't just broken his heart, she'd woken him up. And now, the hero they thought they had tamed was about to become the hunter they never saw coming. It wasn't revenge, not entirely. Ethan didn't want to ruin them. He wanted to free himself. But if the truth had to break a few hearts on its way out, so be it. So he planned it. Every moment, every angle. Amanda's birthday dinner. Family only. At the house he paid for. One long dining table. 8 seats. Candles, wine, linen napkins, and just beneath each plate, an envelope, hand-labeled, inside screenshots, emails, call logs. For Amanda's mom, proof of where her boutique's funding really came from. For her dad, bank statements showing the lease he bragged about, Ethan signed it. For Jessica, copies of credit card applications filed in his name. Ethan made sure the timing was perfect. His lawyer scheduled the fraud lawsuit email to send mid-dinner. His accountant triggered financial alerts to Jessica's phone at 7:46 p.m. Amanda's joint card would decline during dessert. And all of them, every one, would get their personalized truth bomb the moment they looked down and saw their name on the envelope. Ethan even placed a bottle of wine next to Amanda. Her favorite. Not out of kindness, but to watch how fast sweetness turns to bitterness when the lies are served cold. The final touch? He wore the same suit Amanda said made him look too boring for family photos. But this time, no one would forget how he looked. The dining room glowed with soft candlelight. The table was flawless linen, napkins folded like swans, wine glasses glinting, silverware perfectly placed. The roast smelled amazing, garlic and rosemary. Amanda's favorite. Jessica wore red lipstick, her signature shade, the one she saved for photo ops. Her cousin had already poured himself his second glass. Amanda's father was halfway through a story about how he mentored the landlord who gave Amanda her first lease. Ethan sat still, smiling, watching. Every detail was rehearsed, but none of them realized they were already on stage. The flicker of candles casting shadows over Amanda's face. The fake laugh Jessica used when she wanted something. The smell of wine too sweet, too strong. It was like watching actors recite lines in a play they didn't know was about to end. Amanda leaned in and whispered something to Jessica. They both chuckled. Someone clinked a fork against a glass. Ethan said nothing. He just looked at the table, at the 8 plates, at the 8 envelopes neatly tucked beneath the napkins like time bombs no one noticed. The irony, this was the nicest dinner they'd ever had together, and it would be the last. Dessert was coming, and with it, the reckoning. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't clink a glass or clear his throat. He simply said, "You might want to check your phones." The words slid across the table like oil on marble. Amanda blinked. Jessica reached for her phone. Her father looked confused, already mid-sip of wine. One by one, they looked down. Tap, swipe. And then, like dominoes, tipping in slow motion, Jessica's screen lit up. Credit card declined. Then a second alert. Notice of lawsuit filed for identity theft. Her wine glass trembled in her hand. Amanda's phone buzzed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. She frowned, unlocking it. 3 banks. Joint account emptied. Boutique funding frozen. Credit cards canceled. Her face turned pale. "What is this?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He just sipped his water. Calm, almost bored. Then one envelope opened. Then another. Paper rustled like thunder. "Is this real?" Amanda's father asked, gripping a printed email. "Jessica," her mother said. But Jessica couldn't speak. Her hands were shaking. The room was no longer warm. The candles still burned, but the light felt cold. No one laughed now. No one moved. Except Ethan, who stood slowly. He didn't shout. He didn't explain. He just said, This was never a dinner. It was a mirror. And now you finally get to see yourselves. Jessica thought it was a bluff, even when her credit card declined, even when the lawsuit notice hit her inbox. "He wouldn't really sue me," she said. "He's Ethan. He folds. He forgives." But Ethan didn't fold. Ethan filed. And the bank didn't care that she cried. Her rent bounced 2 weeks later. The apartment leased under Ethan's name was terminated. She begged the landlord, but the system had already processed the removal. Her car repossessed. She missed 3 payments because she'd used Ethan's cards to cover the last 2. Gone. Jessica packed her things into a single suitcase and called Amanda. "I just need a place to crash, just for a while." Amanda didn't respond right away because Amanda had her own problems. Jessica knocked on the door. Amanda opened it, pale, shaken. "Jess, I can't, not now." Jessica blinked. "But I'm your sister." "I know." Amanda shut the door. And Jessica, once the loudest voice at the table, sat down on the curb holding a half-zipped suitcase with no idea where to go. Amanda thought she still had time. Even after Ethan walked away from that dinner, she believed it could be salvaged. She was wrong. The boutique was the first to go. The IRS seized her business account for unpaid taxes. A lien was placed on the storefront. Inventory was frozen. Amanda showed up the next morning, lipstick, heels, and a forced smile, only to be handed a notice by a federal officer standing behind the counter. She tried to explain, "This is a mistake. It's all under my name." But the officer just pointed to the papers. "The financial support for your lease came from Mr. Ethan Carter. It's all documented." The media caught wind. A local article went viral. "Trendy boutique owner faces audit, accused of financial misrepresentation." Then came the divorce papers. Amanda scoffed at first. "He's got nothing. Everything's shared." But then the lawyer slid a copy of a post-nuptial agreement across the table. Amanda blinked. Her signature, her handwriting, signed in Las Vegas 18 months ago while intoxicated, and notarized. She remembered the night. Champagne, laughter, a joke. Ethan had said, "Let's make it official, protect each other." She'd laughed, like a prenup after the wedding? Exactly. She'd signed it giggling while feeding quarters into a slot machine. And now, that moment, that stupid, bubbly moment, was the only thing standing between her and Ethan's assets. Amanda tried to argue, but the judge had already seen the paperwork. Your signature is clear, your state of mind is not legally relevant, and the document is binding. Amanda walked out with nothing, just her clothes, her name tarnished, her boutique seized, her future unknown. Amanda's parents didn't say a word. Not during dinner, not after dessert, not when the envelopes landed in front of them. Ethan watched as her father slowly opened his, the same man who once toasted him as a true gentleman. Inside documents, emails, transaction logs, proof that the lease he'd bragged about at every family barbecue was paid for not by him, but by the useless son-in-law he never truly respected. Amanda's mother covered her mouth with shaking fingers. Her eyes scanned the email's messages between Amanda and Jessica mocking Ethan, and she said nothing. No apology, no excuse, just quiet. That was the part Ethan hadn't expected. Not anger, not denial, but surrender. A still, heavy kind of defeat. For years, they'd smiled at him, thanked him, said he was family. But in truth, he was just useful. Until he wasn't. Now that the money was gone, now that the truth was in front of them, they didn't know how to speak to him anymore. Ethan stood up from the table. No one moved to stop him. He didn't say goodbye. Because the silence said more than they ever did. The divorce was fast, 30 days. No trial, no mediation, just signatures and silence. Amanda tried to argue at first about the house, the boutique, the shared accounts, but the prenup, the postnup, the receipts, all stacked against her like a silent wall of truth. Ethan never raised his voice. He never gloated. He simply showed her what she'd left behind. the life she burned, the man she underestimated. Amanda left with 3 suitcases, a few dresses, some shoes, and that look, that confused, wounded look, as if she still didn't understand what she lost, as if she expected him to chase her, beg her, hold on. But Ethan didn't. He stood by the doorway, silent, letting her pass through one last time. No tears, no speech, because the answer to her why was everything she no longer had. People ask me sometimes, do you miss her? I don't. I don't miss Amanda. I don't miss the way she used to smile at dinner parties, only to roll her eyes when we were alone. I don't miss being her wallet, her audience. I don't miss the way she never really saw me. No, I don't miss her. What I miss is the illusion, the belief that I belonged, that I was building something real with someone who cared, that all the sacrifices meant something. I miss the version of myself who believed. That man is gone now. In his place, a man who is free from pretending, free from begging for crumbs of affection. This isn't a happy ending. It's not even revenge. It's quiet, like the moment after a storm when all that's left are broken branches and clear skies. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought she was. They thought I was the quiet one, the harmless one, the easy one, the man who would sit in silence while the world laughed around him. They mistook kindness for weakness, patience for passivity, love for leverage. But here's the thing about quiet men. We observe, we take notes, we remember. And when we rise, we don't raise our voice, we raise the truth. And the truth is sharper than any scream. The truth is, I never needed to shout to be heard. I just needed to stop saving the people who were drowning me. My silence wasn't surrender. It was the sound of me arming myself with everything they never saw coming. They forgot. Quiet men don't burn bridges. We build exits. And when the time comes, we leave. And we don't look back. It's quiet now. No more passive-aggressive sighs. No more sarcastic laughs echoing from the hallway. Just me. The kettle whistles once. I pour myself tea. I don't rush anymore. I don't wait for footsteps upstairs. I don't tiptoe around moods I didn't create. I work. I breathe. I sit by the window and listen to the wind. Peace doesn't always arrive with a celebration. Sometimes it just settles, slowly, quietly, like dust on untouched furniture, like calm on a lake no one swims in anymore. I used to think peace was the reward for winning, but no, peace is the reward for walking away. And I did, and I don't miss the noise. Don't mistake silence for weakness. Some people don't scream. Some don't fight in public. Some just watch. They count every bruise hidden behind a smile. They collect every betrayal disguised as love. And when they rise, they don't ask for justice. They deliver it. I was never broken. I was just quiet because I needed time to build a truth so heavy it would collapse every lie they stacked against me. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt small or invisible, remember, the ones they ignore are often the ones they should have feared the most. Quiet doesn't mean powerless. It means patient, and sometimes that's exactly what makes you unstoppable. Silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it's just the space we need to see who truly loves us, who's using us, and who doesn't deserve a place in our lives. In a world that often rewards noise and flash, quiet people get overlooked. But they're not weak. They're watchers, thinkers, builders of long games. You don't need to scream to reclaim your worth. You don't have to explode to take your power back. Sometimes the greatest strength is in what you don't say while you prepare for the moment that changes everything. So remember, don't confuse loyalty with obligation. Don't lose yourself trying to fit into a family that only tolerates you. And above all, never let kindness blind you to disrespect, because you're not here to be someone's convenience. You're here to matter. If you've ever been the quiet one, the giver, the fixer, the one who loved too much and got too little, then you're not alone. Pieces of Soul is where your story belongs, where silence is finally heard, where wounds find their voice and healing begins. Hit that subscribe button if this story spoke to you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this right now, share it, because sometimes one story can be the lifeline someone didn't know they needed.